They said an Omega alone in the frost would be bones by spring. When the Frosthaven pack cast Nyxa out into the killing cold of the Whispering Pines, they expected her corpse by Thor. But she didn't die. She survived because of a broken wolf pup she found bleeding beneath her porch. She fed him her last strips of dried rabbit and whispered her darkest fears into his torn ear. She thought she was saving a stray. She had no idea that by saving him, she was igniting a war that would burn through 4 territories. Because that wasn't just any pup. And the 4 black wolves standing outside her cabin door 3 months later, they didn't come to kill her. They came to bow. The isolation of the northern pine forests changes a person. It strips away the pretense of civilization and leaves nothing but the rhythm of one's own heartbeat and the whisper of wind through ancient trees. Nyxa Thorne had once been the daughter of the beater of the Frosthaven pack. Now she was a rogue, a rejected Omega living in a collapsing trapper's cabin on the edge of neutral territory known as Dead Man's Ridge. Her crime? She had refused to mate with the Alpha's son, Garrett. He hadn't taken rejection well. A fabricated accusation of stealing pack medicine, a staged scene of broken sacred totems in her quarters, and suddenly her own father had looked at her with disgust instead of love. She wasn't just banished. She was erased. Leave, Nyxa, her father had said, his voice void of warmth. Before I forget you were ever my daughter. So she left. Hello friends. Before we journey deeper into Nyxa's story, I invite you to subscribe and share in the comments where you're listening from. Your presence here matters. Now, let's continue. Life out here was a brutal cycle of survival. Chop wood, check traps, melt snow for drinking water, sleep with a knife under her pillow. It was lonely, but it held a strange peace, until the day she found him. It was late February, and the frost was thick enough to crack tree bark. Nyxa was checking a rabbit snare near the frozen creek when she heard a whimper. It was faint, desperate, barely audible over the wind's howl. She followed the sound to the collapsed section of her cabin's porch. Underneath, curled into a trembling ball of matted fur, was a wolf pup. He was a wreck. His ribs pressed against his skin like prison bars. One ear was torn clean through, and his back leg twisted at an unnatural angle. He looked like a runt that had been abandoned by a merciless pack, something Nyxa understood more intimately than she cared to admit. Hey there, little one, she whispered, kneeling in the snow despite the cold seeping through her worn pants. The pup snapped weakly, baring tiny needle-sharp teeth. His eyes were a startling shade of storm gray, unusual for a wolf but not impossible in high-lineage shifters. But this was no shifter. He didn't carry the scent of a human soul. He smelled of pine, dried blood, and wild earth. Just a regular wolf. I'm not going to hurt you, she said gently, pulling a piece of dried rabbit from her pocket. It was supposed to be her dinner, but he looked like he needed it more. She tossed it near him. He devoured it in seconds and stared at her, waiting for more. That's all I have, buddy. She sighed, studying his mangled leg. You're not going to make it through the night out here. She knew the rules, don't interfere with nature's course. But looking at him, broken, rejected, alone, she saw her own reflection. She removed her scarf, wrapped him carefully despite his weak growls, and carried him inside the cabin. She named him Ash. Over the next 10 weeks, Ash became her shadow. She splintered his leg using kindling and strips torn from an old shoat. She shared her thin stews with him, giving him the larger portions. She talked to him constantly, filling the oppressive silence with her voice. You know, Garrett was a monster, she told Ash one evening as they sat by the crackling fire. Ash was gnawing on a deer bone, but he paused, looking up at her with those intense grey eyes. He thought because he was the future alpha, he owned me. But I'd rather freeze out here than be a decoration in a gilded prison. Ash let out a low huff that sounded strangely like understanding. He limped over and rested his head on her knee. You get it, don't you? She scratched behind his notched ear. Us throwaways have to stick together. He grew rapidly, unnaturally so. By mid-April, his leg had healed completely, and he'd reached the size of a full-grown timber wolf. His coat, once muddy and tangled, grew in thick and lustrous, a distinctive silver gray that caught the light like molten metal. But there were peculiarities. He never howled. He never marked territory like normal wolves. And sometimes Nyxa would wake in the dead of night to find him sitting at the window, staring into the tree line with a rigidity that seemed almost military. He wasn't watching for prey. He was standing guard. Nyxa pushed aside her unease. She was simply grateful to have a companion. Then came the morning that shattered everything. It was a grey dawn, the air heavy and charged with atmospheric pressure. Ash was agitated. He refused his breakfast, pacing the cabin's small interior with low growls rumbling deep in his chest. Ash, settle down, Nyxa scolded, pulling on her boots. I need to check the traps. He blocked the door, standing rigid with hackles raised and teeth bared at her. Move, she commanded, using a touch of her Omega authority. Usually, animals responded. He didn't budge. Instead, he pushed her back with his snout, forcefully. What's wrong with? Then she heard it. The crunch of tires on snow. Her cabin was miles from any main road. No one came here. Ever. Nyxa rushed to the window, her heart slamming against her ribs. Coming up the winding trail were 4 vehicles, not the rusted trucks of local hunters, but matte black Range Rovers with tinted windows and reinforced bumpers. They looked like machines built for war. They stopped in the clearing 30 yards from her porch. Hunters, she breathed, terror rising in her throat. Ash released a snarl that vibrated through the floorboards, but he wasn't looking at the vehicles with fear. He was looking at them with recognition. The doors opened in perfect unison. 4 massive men emerged. Even from this distance, Nyxa could feel their presence pressing against her senses. Werewolves. Powerful ones. They wore tactical gear, dark combat pants, black jackets, heavy boots. They didn't speak. They moved with synchronized precision that spoke of military training. Then they shifted. It was terrifying to witness. Bones cracked and reformed in seconds. Where 4 men had stood, 4 massive wolves now prowled. But these weren't ordinary wolves. They were onyx wolves, pitch-black fur, eyes like molten gold, easily twice the size of natural wolves. In the werewolf world, black wolves were rare, typically bred for one purpose, elimination. They were executioners, elite guards of ruling bloodlines. And they were surrounding her cabin. Nyxa stumbled back from the window, grabbing the fireplace poker. It was a pathetic weapon against shifters of that caliber, but it was all she possessed. Ash, she whispered, her voice trembling. Hide. Get under the bed. Ash didn't hide. He walked calmly to the center of the room and sat, facing the door. His posture was regal, authoritative. Thud. A heavy paw struck the front door. Thud. Open the door, Nyxa Thorne, a voice boomed from outside. One of them had shifted back to human form. We know you have him. Her blood turned to ice. Him? Did they mean the pup? Was Ash stolen property of some powerful alpha? I don't know who you are, she yelled back, gripping the poker until her knuckles whitened. Leave us alone. We aren't leaving, the voice replied, deep and gravelly with authority. Surrender the heir, and you'll be spared. Heir? Nyxa's mind reeled. She looked at Ash, who remained perfectly still, watching the door with those storm-grey eyes that suddenly seemed far too intelligent, far too human. What heir? She shouted. He's just a wolf I found. The door exploded inward. The door hung from one hinge, splintered wood scattered across the floor like broken bones. A massive figure filled the doorway, 6.5 feet of pure muscle, with a jagged scar running from his temple to his jaw. His amber eyes locked onto Ash with laser focus. Stand down, Kale, came a voice from behind him, younger, but carrying undeniable command. The scarred man, Kale, stepped aside. A second man entered, smaller in build but radiating authority that made Nyxa's Omega instinct scream to submit. He had silver-streaked black hair despite appearing only in his late 20s, and eyes that assessed everything with tactical precision. But it was the third figure that made Nyxa's breath catch. He moved into the cabin with fluid grace, and when his gaze found Ash, his entire demeanor shifted from military cold to something raw and relieved. He dropped to one knee. My lord, he said, voice thick with emotion. We've been searching for 3 months. Ash, no, not Ash anymore, stood slowly. The air in the cabin changed, pressure building like before a lightning strike. Nyxa watched in horror and fascination as the wolf she'd nursed back to health began to shift. The transformation was brutal. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur receded into skin. Limbs elongated. Within 30 seconds, a man knelt where Ash had been. He was lean but muscled, with silver-grey hair that fell past his shoulders, the same distinctive color as his wolf coat. His storm-grey eyes, achingly familiar, found hers immediately. The notched ear remained, a small scar on otherwise perfect features. He was completely naked, but he didn't seem to care. "Nyxa," he said, and his voice was rough, unused, but undeniably human. "I can explain." She backed against the wall, poker still raised, hand trembling. "What are you?" "My name is Varkel Stormborne." He stood slowly, and one of the men, the one with tactical precision, immediately draped a jacket over his shoulders. "I'm the alpha heir of Eclipse Ridge. 3 months ago, my uncle poisoned me with a wolfsbane variant that trapped me in wolf form. I was hunted, injured, left to die." His eyes never left hers. "And then you found me." "No." Nyxa shook her head, refusing to accept it. "No, you were just a pup. You were dying," Varkel finished quietly. "You saved my life. You splintered my leg, shared your food when you barely had enough for yourself, kept me warm through the worst of winter." He took a step closer, and she noticed he moved with a slight limp, favoring the leg she'd once bandaged. "You talked to me like I mattered. Like I was more than a title or a weapon." The silver-haired man cleared his throat. "My lord, we should move. Draven's forces." "I know, Jax." Varkel's jaw tightened. "Give me a moment." Nyxa's mind raced, trying to reconcile the broken pup she'd saved with the alpha heir standing before her. "Why didn't you tell me? You could have shifted weeks ago, couldn't you?" "Not at first." Varkel's expression held guilt and something deeper. "The poison took nearly 2 months to break down enough for me to shift. But yes, for the last few weeks, I could have revealed myself." He took another step. "I didn't because for the first time in my life, someone saw me without the weight of expectations. You didn't care that I was an heir. You just cared that I was hurt. You lied to me." Her voice cracked. "I omitted truth," he corrected gently. "Everything else was real. Your stories about Garrett, about your exile, about feeling thrown away. I heard every word, Nyxa. And I swore to myself that when I could speak again, I'd make sure you never felt discarded again." Kale shifted impatiently. "My lord, Draven's kill squad is 12 hours behind us at most. We found you by tracking the wolfsbane signature. They can too." Varkel's eyes flashed with protective fury. "Then we leave. Now." He turned fully to Nyxa. "You're coming with us." "Excuse me." Anger cut through her shock. "You don't get to make decisions for me." "Draven knows about you," Jax interjected, his tactical calm somehow more frightening than anger. "His spies reported that the heir was spotted with a lone omega. You're a liability to him, loose ends get eliminated." "I can take care of myself," Nyxa snapped, even as fear coiled in her gut. "I've survived out here for months. Against cold and hunger, yes." The fourth man finally spoke, massive, arms covered in tribal tattoos, voice like grinding stones. "Not against 15 trained killers who specialize in making deaths look like accidents." Varkel moved closer, and Nyxa caught his scent, pine and snow and something uniquely him, the same scent she'd grown accustomed to over months of closeness. "I won't force you. But please, Nyxa. Let me protect you. You saved my life. Let me return the favor." She wanted to refuse. Wanted to cling to her hard-won independence. But she'd seen the vehicles, felt the power radiating from these wolves. If they said a kill squad was coming, they weren't exaggerating. "If I go with you," she said slowly, "it's temporary. Until this threat passes. Then I come back here." Something flickered in Varkel's eyes, pain, perhaps, or determination. "Agreed. And you don't order me around. I'm not Pack. I'm not yours to command." "You were never mine to command," he said softly. "You were always my equal, Nyxa. Even when you thought I was just a broken wolf." Kale made an impatient sound. "Touching. Can we move?" Nyxa looked around her cabin, the only home she'd had for months, the sanctuary she'd built from nothing. Her eyes landed on the corner where Varkel, used to sleep, on the hearth where they'd spent countless evenings together. 5 minutes, she said. "Let me pack." They gave her 3. Nyxa shoved essentials into a worn backpack, extra clothes, her hunting knife, the medical supplies she'd used on Varkel's leg, a small journal where she'd documented her survival techniques. Her hands shook as she worked, adrenaline and betrayal and something else, something she didn't want to name, warring inside her. Varkel watched from the doorway, now fully dressed in black tactical gear that his guards had brought. He looked different like this, dangerous, powerful, every inch the alpha heir he claimed to be. But when their eyes met, she saw glimpses of ash in his expression. The way he tilted his head slightly when concerned. The protective set of his shoulders. "I meant what I said," he told her quietly while his guards secured the perimeter outside. "Everything between us was real." Was it? Nyxa shoved her journal into the bag. "Because the wolf I knew didn't have the power to destroy my life with a single decision. The wolf I knew needed me. Now I'm just a liability you have to protect. You're not a... Save it." She shouldered her pack. "I'm coming because I'm not stupid enough to face a kill squad alone. But don't confuse survival pragmatism with forgiveness." Pain flickered across his features, but he nodded. "Fair enough." Outside, the sun was setting, painting the snow in shades of blood orange. The 4 black wolves, she now understood they were Varkel's elite guards, had already shifted back to human form, checking weapons and scanning the tree line with military precision. Jax approached with a heavy jacket. "It's a 6-hour drive to Eclipse Ridge. You'll want this." Nyxa took it silently, noting how they'd come prepared for her. They'd known exactly where Varkel was, had known about her. The thought made her skin crawl. How long had they been watching? "We tracked the wolfsbane's unique chemical signature," Jax said, as if reading her mind. "It took months to isolate, but once we had it, we could follow the trail. We've been closing in for the past week. And Draeven's people. Using the same method, likely. But they are less precise in their approach." "Meaning?" Nyxa demanded. Kale answered bluntly. "Meaning they'll burn this whole area to ensure no witnesses." As if summoned by his words, a distant sound reached them, engines, multiple vehicles, moving fast through the forest. "They are early," the tattooed guard, she still didn't know his name, growled. Varkel's hand found the small of Nyxa's back, protective and possessive. "Move. Now." They ran for the SUVs. Nyxa glanced back once at her cabin, silhouetted against the dying light. Smoke was already rising from the tree line. They were using fire to flush them out. She climbed into the vehicle beside Varkel, and as they sped away, she watched through the rear window as flames began to devour the forest behind them. Her sanctuary. Her hard-won peace. All of it burning because she'd shown mercy to a dying wolf. Varkel's hand found hairs in the darkness of the vehicle. She should have pulled away. Instead, she gripped back, holding on as her world collapsed behind them and an unknown future roared ahead. The drive to Eclipse Ridge was tense silence punctuated by Jax's clipped updates from the front passenger seat. Draeven's kill squad had reached the cabin 20 minutes after their departure. They'd found nothing but ash. Nyxa stared out the window at the endless darkness of pine forests, trying to process the past hour. Beside her, Varkel remained quiet, his hand still holding hers. She should pull away. Should rebuild the walls that months of isolation had constructed. She didn't. "Tell me about him," she finally said. "Your uncle. Draeven." Varkel's jaw tightened. "My father's younger brother. Always felt overlooked, undervalued. When my father, Alpha Prime Kyrian, started grooming me as heir instead of my older brothers, Draeven's resentment festered into something toxic." "Why you?" Nyxa asked. "If you have older brothers." "Torian is a warrior, brilliant in combat but not strategic enough for politics. Jax," he nodded toward the front seat, "is my middle brother. He's diplomatic, intelligent, but he never wanted to lead. He prefers advisory roles." Varkel's thumb traced circles on her palm, absent and intimate. "I was trained for balance. Warrior and politician. It made me the natural choice. And Draeven couldn't accept that. He saw it as theft. At the winter feast 3 months ago, he poisoned my drink. Wolfsbane hybrid, designed to trap shifters in animal form, slowly kill us while we're unable to speak, unable to defend ourselves." His voice dropped. "I shifted involuntarily that night, in front of the entire pack. Draeven claimed I'd been cursed, that I'd brought shame to the bloodline. He hunted me into the neutral territories. Kale spoke from the driver's seat, eyes never leaving the road. We suspected immediately. But without proof, without the heir, we couldn't move against Draeven openly. He'd positioned himself perfectly, grieving brother helping the family in crisis while consolidating power. Your father? Nyxa asked. Ill. Pain cracked through Varkel's composure. Possibly poisoned as well, though we can't prove it. Draven's been ruling as regent for 3 months. The massive tattooed guard in the front passenger seat turned slightly. Name's Brutus, by the way. Since we're sharing trauma. Despite everything, Nyxa almost smiled. Nyxa Thorne. We know. Brutus's grin was fierce. The Omega who saved our Alpha. Your pack legend already. I'm not pack, Nyxa corrected sharply. Not yet, Varkel murmured, so quietly she almost missed it. They drove through the night, leaving the neutral territories and crossing into Eclipse Ridge lands. Nyxa felt the shift, something in the air, a resonance she couldn't name. Pack territory. For someone who'd been exiled, the sensation was both comforting and terrifying. Dawn was breaking when they finally saw it, Eclipse Ridge compound. It was massive, built into the mountainside itself, a fortress of stone and timber that looked like it had grown from the earth rather than been constructed. Ancient pines surrounded it, and watchtowers punctuated the perimeter. It was beautiful and intimidating in equal measure. Guards swarmed them immediately as they pulled through the main gates. Word of Varkel's return spread like wildfire. Wolves emerged from buildings, some in human form, others shifted, all staring in shock and recognition. The heir lives, someone shouted. The cry was taken up, rippling through the compound. The heir lives. Varkel Stormborne lives. 2 men burst from the main pack house, and Nyxa knew instantly they were Varkel's brothers. The resemblance was unmistakable, same sharp features, same bearing of command, though one was broader and scarred, the other leaner and calculating. The scarred one, Taurian, she assumed, reached them first, pulling Varkel into a crushing embrace. 3 months. 3 goddamn months we thought you were dead. I'm harder to kill than that, Varkel said, returning the embrace with equal fierceness. Jax climbed out and was immediately grabbed by the leaner brother. Little brother. We searched everywhere. I know. Jax's voice was thick. I'm sorry it took so long. Then both brothers noticed Nyxa, still standing beside the SUV, suddenly feeling very exposed under dozens of curious stares. Taurian's eyes narrowed. Who's this? Varkel moved to her side instantly, protective. This is Nyxa Thorne. She saved my life. Nursed me back to health for 3 months. She's under my protection. Your protection, the other brother, who had to be the middle one, also named Jax apparently, repeated slowly. His sharp eyes moved between them, noting Varkel's proximity to her, the way he positioned himself slightly in front of her. Or something more? Varkel's silence was answer enough. Taurian's expression shifted from suspicion to understanding, then to concern. Does Draven know about her? Yes, Kale answered grimly. He sent a kill squad. We barely got them out ahead of it. Then we need to move her inside immediately, Taurian decided. If Draven knows she's important to Varkel, she's a target. I'm standing right here, Nyxa interjected sharply. And I'm not some prize to be moved around. Taurian's eyebrows rose. She's got spine. I like her. Of course she does, Varkel said, and there was pride in his voice. She survived months alone in Dead Man's Ridge. She's stronger than half the wolves in this compound. We need to see father, Jax, the brother, not the guard, said urgently. He's been asking for you. He knew, Varkel. He never believed Draven's story. They moved through the compound in a protective formation, Varkel's brothers leading, Nyxa and Varkel in the middle, the shadow guard flanking. Wolves bowed as they passed, some in respect, others in shock. Nyxa caught whispers. That's her? The Omega. She looks so ordinary. Draven's going to lose his mind. Good. Let him burn. They entered the pack house, a sprawling structure of polished wood and stone, elegant but functional. Varkel led her through corridors lined with portraits of previous alphas until they reached a massive door guarded by 2 enormous wolves. The Alpha Prime's chambers, Varkel explained quietly. My father. The guards opened the doors. Inside, the room was dominated by a large bed where a man lay propped against pillows. He looked like an older version of Varkel, same silver-grey hair, same sharp features, but illness had carved hollows in his face. His storm-grey eyes, however, were alert and fierce. Varkel. Kirian's voice was weak but warm. My son. Varkel crossed the room in 3 strides, kneeling beside the bed. Father. I'm here. I'm alive. I knew. Kirian's hand gripped Varkel's. I never believed that bastard's lies. His eyes shifted to Nyxa, standing uncertainly near the door. And this must be the Omega who accomplished what my entire pack couldn't, bringing my son home. Nyxa stepped forward hesitantly. Alpha Prime. I'm Nyxa Thorne. Come closer, child. Let me see you. She approached the bed. Kirian studied her with an intensity that made her want to squirm, but she held his gaze. An Omega with no pack, he finally said. Yet standing beside my son with your head high. Tell me your story. So she did. She told him about Frosthaven, about Garrett, about her father's betrayal. About survival in Dead Man's Ridge, about finding a dying wolf and choosing mercy over pragmatism. About the last 3 months. Kirian listened to every word. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You have more honor than wolves born to it, he finally said. You're welcome here, Nyxa Thorne. She's more than welcome, Varkel interjected. She's your fated mate, Kirian finished. I can see it, boy. The question is, does she want to be? Every eye in the room turned to Nyxa. She felt the weight of that question, the implications. Fated mate to an alpha heir. It meant power, status, protection, everything she'd lost when Frosthaven exiled her. It also meant surrendering the independence she'd fought so hard to build. The silence stretched like a taut wire ready to snap. Nyxa stood frozen under the scrutiny of the Alpha Prime, his sons, and the Shadow Guard. Her heart hammered against her ribs, but she kept her chin high. I don't know, she finally answered, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. I don't know what I want. Kirian's lips curved into what might have been approval. An honest answer. Better than empty promises. He looked at Varkel. Give her time, son. The girl's had her world upended twice in as many seasons. Pushing her will only drive her away. I'm not pushing, Varkel said quietly, but his eyes on Nyxa were intense, burning with something between desperation and restraint. I'm just asking her to stay alive long enough to decide. Which brings us to the immediate problem, Torian interjected, crossing his arms. Draeven. He's held regent power for 3 months. He's not going to relinquish it just because Varkel walked back through the gates. Jax nodded grimly. He'll claim Varkel is compromised. That the wolfsbane poisoning damaged his mind. He'll argue that bringing an unmated Omega of questionable origin into the pack house proves instability. Questionable origin. Nyxa's voice sharpened. Excuse me. Not our opinion, Jax clarified quickly. But it's what Draven will say. You're from Frosthaven, a pack known for harsh Omega treatment and political instability. He'll paint you as a spy or a manipulator. Kirian coughed, a rattling sound that made Varkel tense. The territorial summit is in 2 weeks. Every alpha from the 4 ruling packs will attend. Draven will use that platform to challenge Varkel's claim. Then we have 2 weeks to solidify my position, Varkel said, his voice taking on the edge of command Nyxa had never heard before. This was the alpha heir, not the wounded wolf she'd nursed. We gather evidence of Draven's treachery, shore up loyalist support, and prepare for war, Brutus finished bluntly. Because that's what this is. Draven won't go quietly. Nyxa listened to them strategize, feeling increasingly out of place. These were wolves born to power, trained in politics and pack warfare. What was she? An exiled Omega who'd barely survived winter. As if sensing her thoughts, Varkel's hand found hers. You're not alone in this. I shouldn't even be in this, she countered quietly. I'm not pack. I'm not. You're mine. The possessiveness in his tone made her breath catch. Sorry, that came out wrong. I mean, you're under my protection. By blood debt and by choice. Draeven wants you dead, Nyxa. That makes you very much in this. Kyrian studied them both with knowing eyes. She needs status. Protection that even Draeven can't easily challenge. The lunar ceremony, Torian said slowly. If Varkel claims her formally. No. Nyxa pulled her hand from Varkel's. I'm not being claimed like property to solve your political problems. It's not like that, Varkel started. Isn't it? She turned on him, months of survival instincts screaming warnings. You need a mate to strengthen your position. I need protection from your homicidal uncle. It's a transaction. It's not. Varkel's jaw clenched with frustration. The bond between us isn't political, Nyxa. What I feel isn't strategy. Then what is it? She demanded. Because 3 days ago you were a wolf who couldn't talk back when I complained about my life. Now you're an alpha A who needs a Luna. Forgive me for questioning the timing. Hurt flickered across his features, but before he could respond, the door burst open. A young woman stormed in, early 20s, dark hair, fierce amber eyes, and an aura that screamed high-ranking wolf. Is it true? Varkel's alive. Seraphine, Jax greeted her with obvious affection. Meet Varkel. You're betrothed. Nyxa's blood turned to ice. Betrothed. Seraphine's eyes locked on Varkel with hunger that made Nyxa's stomach churn. 3 months I mourned you. 3 months Draeven told me you were dead, that our union was. She stopped, finally noticing Nyxa. Who is this? Nyxa Thorne, Varkel said, and his voice was carefully neutral. She saved my life. How fortunate. Seraphine's smile didn't reach her eyes. I'm Seraphine Ashwood, daughter of Alpha Moira of Crimson Vale. Varkel and I have been betrothed since childhood. A political alliance between Eclipse Ridge and Crimson Vale. The words hit Nyxa like physical blows. Betrothed. Childhood. Alliance. That arrangement was made before I understood what fated bonds meant, Varkel said, but his tone lacked conviction. Fated bonds are myths, Seraphine countered smoothly. Political alliances are reality. Our packs need this union, Varkel. Your father and my mother have built their strategies around it. Kyrian remained silent, which told Nyxa everything. He wasn't denying it. I need air, Nyxa managed, backing toward the door. Nyxa, wait. Varkel moved to follow, but Seraphine's hand on his arm stopped him. Let her go. She's clearly overwhelmed. Meanwhile, we have much to discuss. 3 months is a long time, and I have questions about your ordeal. Nyxa didn't wait to hear more. She fled. She found herself on a balcony overlooking the compound, gulping cold air that burned her lungs. Stupid. She'd been stupid to think, what? That a broken wolf she'd nursed was actually hers? That the connection she'd felt was real and not just loneliness and proximity? He didn't tell you about Seraphine. Nyxa spun to find Jax, the brother, not the guard, leaning against the door frame. Clearly not, she said bitterly. In his defense, the betrothal was made when they were children. Varkel's been trying to break it for years. Not very successfully, apparently. Jax moved to stand beside her. Political betrothals aren't easily dissolved. They require cause, proof of incompatibility, or... He trailed off meaningfully. Or a fated mate, Nyxa finished. Which conveniently, I might be. You are. Jax's certainty was unnerving. I've seen the way he looks at you. The way he positions himself around you. The way his wolf responds. That's not political strategy, Nyxa. That's instinct. Then why not tell me about Seraphine? Because he's an idiot, Jax said bluntly. Brilliant strategist, deadly warrior, complete emotional disaster. He probably thought he'd have time to explain before she showed up. Well, he was wrong. They stood in silence, watching wolves move through the compound below. Finally, Jax spoke again. Draven's forces are mobilizing. We've received intelligence that he's planning something for the summit, a challenge that will force Varkel to prove his worthiness in front of all 4 packs. He turned to face her. If Varkel appears weak or compromised, Draven wins. And if Draven wins, everyone who helped Varkel, including you, becomes a liability to be eliminated. You're saying I need Varkel's protection. I'm saying you need each other. Jax's expression was serious. But more than that, I think you want each other. The question is whether your pride or your survival instinct is stronger. Before Nyxa could respond, raised voices echoed from inside. She recognized Varkel's tone, angry, defensive. Jax winced. That would be him telling Seraphine exactly where she can put her childhood betrothal. He headed for the door. You should probably hear this. Against her better judgment, Nyxa followed. They reached Kirian's chambers to find Varkel standing toe-to-toe with Seraphine, his voice low and dangerous. I don't care what contracts our parents signed. I don't care about political alliances. I will not mate with someone I don't choose. This isn't about choice. Seraphine's composure was cracking. This is about duty. About what's best for both our packs. What's best for our packs is strong leadership built on genuine bonds, not forced unions that breed resentment. Varkel's eyes found Nyxa in the doorway. I've already found my mate. You're not her. Seraphine followed his gaze, her expression twisting with rage and hurt. Her? An exiled Omega with no status, no lineage, no. Careful, Varkel's voice dropped to a growl. You're talking about my mate. I'm your mate. Seraphine's composure shattered. We've been promised to each other for 15 years. A promise I never made. My father made it. I'm making my own choices now. He turned to Kirian. Father, I formally request dissolution of the betrothal contract. Kirian looked between his son, Seraphine, and Nyxa. When he spoke, his voice was weary. It's not that simple, Varkel. The alliance with Crimson Veil will survive without a mating bond. Alpha Moira is reasonable. She'll understand. Will she? Seraphine's laugh was bitter. You're willing to risk our pack's most important alliance for an Omega you've known 3 months? An Omega who doesn't even want you. All eyes turned to Nyxa. This was it. The moment of choice. She could walk away, return to her isolated survival, leave these wolves to their politics and wars. It would be safer. Simpler. But Draven's kill squad would find her eventually. And more than that, she looked at Varkel, really looked at him. Saw the wolf who'd rested his head on her knee while she told him her darkest fears. Saw the way he'd brought her rabbits, had stood guard while she slept, had looked at her like she mattered when everyone else had thrown her away. The connection wasn't political. It wasn't convenience. It was real. She wants me, Nyxa said quietly, stepping into the room. And I want her. The shocked silence was deafening. Nyxa crossed to Varkel, her heart pounding. I don't know anything about fated bonds or lunar ceremonies or pack politics. But I know that for 3 months, you were the only thing that kept me sane. I know that even now, even with all this chaos, when I look at you, something in me settles. Varkel's hand came up to cup her face, thumb tracing her cheekbone. Nyxa. I'm not doing this for protection, she interrupted. I'm doing this because apparently, I'm as much an idiot as you are. His laugh was half-sob. We idiots together, then. The worst kind, she agreed. Then he kissed her, and the world narrowed to just them, his hands in her hair, her fingers clutching his shirt, the rightness of it drowning out every logical argument for why this was a terrible idea. When they finally broke apart, Seraphine was gone. Kirian watched them with something between exasperation and fondness. Well, the Alpha Prime said dryly. I suppose that settles the betrothal question. The compound erupted into chaos 30 minutes later. Nyxa was in the quarters they'd assigned her, luxurious compared to her cabin, with an actual bed and running water, when the alarms sounded. She'd barely processed the shrill warning before Varkel burst through her door, the shadow guard right behind him. We're leaving. Now. His face was grim. What happened? Draven made his move. Kale was already throwing supplies into a tactical bag. His declared Varkel's return a deception, claims you're a witch who's enchanted the air with dark magic. That's ridiculous, Nyxa protested. Doesn't matter. Brutus appeared with weapons. Half the pack believes him. He's got 50 loyalists armed and heading for the main house. This is a coup. Torian and Jax appeared in the doorway. Father's being moved to the secured bunker, Torian reported. He's ordered Varkel to evacuate with the Omega. Draven wants her dead to break whatever hold he thinks she has. Varkel gripped Nyxa's shoulders. There's a safe house 3 hours north. Remote, defensible. We'll regroup there, gather evidence, An explosion rocked the building. They're using explosives, Jack said, disbelief coloring his tone. He's actually attacking the pack house. Move. Varkel grabbed Nyxa's hand. They ran through corridors filling with smoke, past wolves fighting wolves, loyalists against Draeven's forces. Nyxa saw blood on ancient stone, heard screams and snarls, witnessed the pack tearing itself apart. A massive grey wolf blocked their path, one of Draeven's commanders, his eyes wild with battle fury. He lunged for Nyxa. Varkel shifted mid-stride. His transformation seamless and deadly. The silver-grey wolf she knew met the attacker head-on. The fight was brutal and brief. Varkel's jaws closed around the other wolf's throat, and it was over. He shifted back, human again, chest heaving. Keep moving. They burst into the courtyard. 2 armored vehicles waited, engines running. Finn, a shadow guard she hadn't been formally introduced to, was behind one wheel. Northern route is compromised, he reported tersely. Draeven's got roadblocks on all main exits. Then we go off-road, Varkel decided. Through Whispering Canyon. That's suicide terrain, Torian protested. Narrow passes, unstable rock face. And Draeven won't expect it. Varkel helped Nyxa into the lead vehicle. He thinks I'm too smart to risk it. Because you are too smart to risk it, Jax countered, but he was already climbing into the second vehicle. They tore out of the compound, Draeven's forces in pursuit. Nyxa twisted in her seat to see Eclipse Ridge, her potential new home, burning behind them. Wolves fought in the courtyards, and smoke poured from shattered windows. Your father, she started, is safe, Varkel assured her, but his jaw was tight with fury. The bunker is impenetrable. Draeven's making a statement, not trying to actually kill Kyrian. He needs my father alive to legitimize his claim as regent. And us. We're loose ends. Evidence that Draeven's a traitor. He'll hunt us until we're dead or he is. The vehicles plunged into dense forest, bouncing over terrain meant for wolves, not machines. Nyxa's teeth clattered together as they hit a boulder, and Varkel's arm came around her, steadying. I'm sorry, he said quietly, under the engine's roar. I brought you into this. I chose to stay, she reminded him. Remember? Idiot decision, made willingly. His lips curved despite everything. Worst kind of idiot. Gunfire erupted behind them. Draeven's forces had vehicles too, and they were gaining. Finn cursed, swerving violently. They've got semi-automatics. Our armor won't hold long. Whispering Canyon, dead ahead, Kale announced from the passenger seat. This is going to get rough. Rough was an understatement. The canyon was a narrow split in the mountainside, barely wide enough for their vehicles. Sheer rock faces rose on either side, and the path, if it could be called that, was littered with fallen stones and treacherous gaps. They plunged in anyway. The vehicle scraped against stone, metal shrieking. Nyxa's heart lodged in her throat as they navigated a turn with inches to spare on either side. Behind them, Draeven's vehicles attempted to follow. One didn't make it. The SUV clipped the rock face, spun out, and tumbled into the ravine below. The sound of metal crunching and wolves screaming echoed through the canyon. They are still coming, Brutus reported from the second vehicle via radio. 3 trucks remaining. Almost through, Finn said through gritted teeth. They emerged from the canyon into an open valley just as the sun began to set. For a moment, Nyxa thought they'd made it. Then she saw the wolves waiting for them. It's a trap, Kale breathed. Draeven had anticipated the canyon route after all. 20 wolves in combat formation blocked the valley's only exit, and more were emerging from the tree line. We're surrounded, Jax's voice crackled over the radio. Varkel's eyes flashed silver. Then we fight. Against 30 trained soldiers. Nyxa demanded. That's suicide. Got a better idea. But his voice held no hope. Nyxa's mind raced. They were outnumbered, outgunned, trapped. In minutes, they'd be overwhelmed. Unless. The ravine, she said suddenly. Everyone turned to stare at her. The western ridge. I saw it as we came through the canyon. It's steep but navigable, for wolves. Not for vehicles. She looked at Varkel. You run. Lead them away. I'll take the vehicles north, make them think we split up. Absolutely not, Varkel said immediately. It's the only way. They want me, right? If I'm visible in the vehicle, some will follow. That splits their forces. And gets you killed. Not if Finn drives like he has been, Nyxa countered. I trust him to get me out. Finn's grin was feral. I can lose them. No, Varkel repeated, but his tone said he was already seeing the logic. Nyxa grabbed his face, forcing him to meet her eyes. 3 months ago, you trusted me to save your life. Now I'm trusting you to save mine. Go. Hunt. I'll meet you at the safe house. Nyxa. She kissed him hard, desperate. Go be the alpha I know you are. I'll be fine. The enemy forces were advancing. They had seconds. Varkel shifted, his silver wolf massive and magnificent. Torian, Jax, Kale, and Brutus shifted as well, flanking him. 5 powerful wolves against 30. Varkel's eyes found Nyxa's one last time. Then he threw back his head and howled, a sound of challenge and rage that made her bones vibrate. The pack surged forward as one. Finn punched the accelerator. Their vehicle shot north while Jax's peeled west. Nyxa looked back to see Varkel's wolf leading his brothers in a devastating charge. They hit Draeven's line like a silver battering ram, scattering wolves in all directions. Then they were gone, swallowed by trees and distance. Hold on, Finn warned. The chase that followed was a blur of adrenaline and terror. Finn drove like a demon, navigating impossible terrain at suicidal speeds. Behind them, 4 of Draeven's vehicles gave chase while the rest presumably went after Varkel. They lost the first pursuit when it failed to clear a fallen log. The second got caught in a hidden ravine. But 2 remained, gaining ground. They're going to ram us, Finn said calmly. Can you lose them? Not on open ground. He glanced at her. But I can give you a chance. There's a river ahead, maybe half a mile. Bridge is out. We're going to have to jump it. Jump it. Nyxa's voice cracked. As in, fly through the air. As in, hold on and pray. Finn's grin was unhinged. Either we make it or Draeven's problem solves itself. The river appeared, a churning mass of white water 30 feet below where a bridge had once stood. The gap was at least 20 feet. This is insane, Nyxa breathed. Best kind of insane, Finn countered. He hit the approach at maximum speed. The vehicle launched off the broken bridge. For 3 endless seconds, they flew. Then they slammed down on the opposite side, suspension shrieking. Behind them, one pursuit vehicle didn't commit to the jump. It screeched to a halt at the edge. The second tried to follow. It didn't make it. The SUV plunged into the river with a massive splash. Nyxa watched it disappear beneath the churning water. Safe house is 20 minutes, Finn said, as if they hadn't just cheated death. Varkel should beat us there if he took the ridge path. Nyxa could only nod, her heart still lodged in her throat. She'd survived. But had Varkel? The safe house was a fortified cabin built into a cliff face, invisible from the main approaches. They arrived to find it empty. Finn immediately began securing the perimeter while Nyxa paced, watching the tree line. Minutes crawled past. Then an hour. He'll come, Finn said quietly. He always does. Finally, as the last light faded from the sky, 4 massive wolves emerged from the forest. Varkel was limping, blood matting his silver fur. But he was alive. Nyxa ran to him. He shifted mid-stride, becoming human in time to catch her. They collided, her arms around his neck, his face buried in her hair. Don't ever make me leave you behind again, he growled. Don't ever give me a reason to, she countered. Around them, his brothers shifted back, all bearing wounds but alive. They'd survived. But as Nyxa held Varkel, feeling his heartbeat against hers, she knew this was only the beginning. Draeven had declared war. And war meant blood. The safe house was cramped with 6 wolves and mounting tension. Torian paced like a caged animal while Jax worked a satellite phone, trying to reach loyalists still in Eclipse Ridge. Kale and Brutus treated wounds with military efficiency. Finn kept watch at the reinforced windows. Varkel sat on the edge of the single bed, Nyxa cleaning a deep gash on his shoulder. Her hands shook despite her best efforts to steady them. We lost 12 loyalists in the initial attack, Jax reported, ending his call. Father's secure in the bunker, but Draeven's locked down the compound. He's calling an emergency pack meeting tomorrow, going to formally declare Varkel unfit and claim regency. On what grounds? Torian demanded. Compromise judgment. Bringing an unmated Omega into the pack house. Abandoning his position during a crisis. Jax's expression was grim. He's spinning the attack as a response to Varkel's destabilizing influence. That's insane, Nyxa protested. He started the attack. Doesn't matter. He controls the narrative now. Jax met Varkel's eyes. The territorial summit is in 10 days. If Draeven solidifies his position before then, the other alphas will recognize his claim. We'll have lost. Varkel was silent, his jaw working. Finally, he stood, wincing at the movement. Then we don't wait 10 days. We go to the summit early, call for an emergency council, and force Draeven to face charges in front of all 4 packs. He'll just spin it as you being desperate, Torian argued. Not if I'm there as a mated alpha with full claim to Eclipse Ridge. Varkel's eyes found Nyxa's. Not if I have a Luna. The room fell silent. Everyone looked at Nyxa. You want to complete the Luna right, she said slowly. Now. I want to give you a choice, Varkel corrected, moving to stand before her. But yes. If you're my Luna, officially, with the bond marked and witnessed, Draeven can't claim I'm compromised. You go from liability to legitimacy. And if I say no? Pain flickered across his features. Then I fight alone, and you hide here until it's over. One way or another. Nyxa studied him, this wolf she'd saved, this alpha who'd invaded her isolation and refused to leave her heart alone. You'd really let me walk away? I'd hate it. Every cell in my body would scream against it. But yes. His hand came up to cup her cheek. You deserve choice, Nyxa. You've had too many things taken from you. I won't be another thief. Even if it costs you everything. Especially then. His thumb traced her lower lip. You're not a political move to me. You're the person who saw me at my most broken and decided I was worth saving. That matters more than any crown. Brutus cleared his throat. As touching as this is, we're on a timeline. The lunar rite requires a full moon, and we've got one tonight. If we're doing this, we need to prepare. Nyxa's heart hammered. Tonight. The bond takes 3 hours to fully form, Kale explained. We'd need to leave for the summit at dawn to arrive before Draeven can block us. It's now or never. She looked around the room at these wolves who'd bled for Varkel, who'd trusted her enough to follow her insane plan in the valley. Then back to Varkel, waiting with his heart in his eyes. Okay, she heard herself say. Let's do it. They prepared in the forest clearing behind the safe house. Jax produced ceremonial items he'd apparently grabbed during their evacuation, a silver circlet for Nyxa, ritual markings for Varkel's chest, and an ancient blade that looked like it had tasted blood across centuries. The lunar rite is older than pack law, Torian explained as he painted symbols on Varkel's torso with ashen herbs. It's primal. Direct. When completed, you're bound not just legally but metaphysically. Your lives, your souls, intertwined. Can it be undone? Nyxa asked, suddenly terrified. Only by death. Torian met her eyes. This isn't symbolic, Nyxa. Once done, you're his and his yours until one of you stops breathing. Kale handed her the circlet. You sure about this? She looked at Varkel standing bare-chested under the rising moon, marked with ancient symbols, and felt that pull, the one that had made her save a dying wolf, the one that made her chest ache when he was hurt, the one that terrified and exhilarated her in equal measure. I'm sure. The full moon rose, silver and massive, as they formed a circle. Varkel stood across from Nyxa, the blade between them. The Shadow Guard and his brothers formed a protective ring, witnesses to what came next. In the old way, Torian began, voice formal and resonant. Before packs and politics, wolves chose their mates by moon and blood. Varkel Stormborne, heir of Eclipse Ridge, do you claim this Omega as your mate, your equal, your Luna? I do. Varkel's voice rang clear. Nyxa Thorn, Omega of no pack, do you accept this claim? Do you bind yourself to this wolf, to stand as his Luna, his mate, his equal? Her throat was dry, but her voice didn't waver. I do. Then let the marking begin. Varkel took the blade, drawing it across his palm. Blood welled, dark and vivid. He offered his hand to Nyxa. She repeated the gesture, the sting sharp and clarifying. Their hands clasped, blood mingling. The effect was immediate and overwhelming. Power surged through Nyxa like lightning through water. She gasped as her senses exploded outward. She could feel Varkel's heartbeat as if it was her own, could sense his emotions like colors in her mind. Fear and hope and love so fierce it burned. The mark, Torian prompted. Varkel pulled her close, his free hand tangling in her hair. His eyes held hers as he leaned down, mouth finding the junction of her neck and shoulder. She felt his canines extend. The bite was agony and ecstasy. Nyxa screamed as his teeth sank deep, as fire raced through her veins, as something fundamental in her shifted and changed. Her omega scent transformed, strengthened, taking on notes of pine and winter, Varkel's scent, claiming her. But it wasn't one-sided. When Varkel released her, blood on his lips, Nyxa felt power rising in her, dormant, ancient, finally awakened. Her eyes flashed gold in the moonlight, and she heard the collective gasp from the witnesses. Luna, Brutus breathed. She's manifesting. Nyxa's vision sharpened until she could see individual leaves on distant trees. Her hearing expanded, catching whispers of the forest. And when she looked at Varkel, she saw the bond between them like silver thread, unbreakable and eternal. Your turn, Varkel said hoarsely. She understood instinctively. Rising on her toes, she let her canines extend, felt them sharpen with predatory efficiency, and bit down on his shoulder. His blood burst copper-bright on her tongue. Varkel groaned, his hands tightening on her waist as the bond completed, snapping into place with audible finality. When she released him, the world had changed. She could feel everything, his pain, his pride, his overwhelming love. And beneath it, the strength of Eclipse Ridge itself, recognizing her as Luna. It's done, Torian said, voice filled with awe. Behold the Luna of Eclipse Ridge. Nyxa looked down at her hands, seeing them glow faintly with power. When she met Varkel's eyes, she saw the same luminescence reflected back. How do you feel? He asked softly. Like I could tear down mountains. She laughed, giddy and terrified. Like I could conquer the world. Like I'm mine, Varkel finished. And I'm yours. The kiss they shared was witnessed by moon and wolves, sealing what blood had begun. They had 3 hours before the bond fully settled. Varkel and Nyxa retreated into the safe house while the others kept watch, giving them privacy for the bond's completion. Nyxa sat on the bed, feeling the power still crackling under her skin. What happens now? Now the bond integrates. It'll be intense, you'll feel everything I feel, and vice versa. Some couples find it overwhelming. Varkel sat beside her, taking her marked hand. But it fades to a manageable background hum after a few days. And the power I felt? The gold eyes. Your dormant alpha lineage activating. Lunar marks don't just bind, they reveal. Your mother's bloodline is manifesting through you. He smiled. You were never just an omega, Nyxa. You were always meant for more. She absorbed that, remembering her mother, quiet, strong, always seeming more than her omega status suggested. She never told me. Probably protecting you. Alpha blood in an omega is dangerous in the wrong hands. Garrett would have. Varkel cut himself off, fury rippling through the bond. Nyxa felt it like heat against her skin. I can feel your anger. And I can feel your fear. His hand squeezed hers. You're terrified about the summit. Aren't you? Honestly? Yes. Draven's had 3 months to plan. We're walking into whatever trap he's set. He turned to face her fully. But I'm not afraid of him. I'm afraid of losing you. You won't. She said it with certainty she didn't fully feel. We didn't survive this long to lose now. Promise me something. His voice went serious. If it goes wrong tomorrow, if Draven wins, you run. You take Finn and you disappear. Don't try to fight for me. Like hell, Nyxa said flatly. I didn't become Luna to run at the first sign of trouble. Nyxa. No. She pressed her fingers to his lips. We're bonded now. Your fight is my fight. Your pack is my pack. And I don't abandon what's mine. The smile that broke across his face was radiant. Gods, I love you. The words hung between them, neither having said them before. Nyxa felt the truth of them through the bond, overwhelming, absolute, terrifying in its intensity. I love you too, she whispered. You impossible, stubborn wolf. Takes one to know one, he murmured against her mouth. They spent those 3 hours learning each other, the bond singing between them as they mapped scars and whispered confessions. As dawn approached, Nyxa lay in Varkel's arms, the mark on her neck still tender but no longer painful. Ready to face a pack war? He asked. No, she admitted. But I'm doing it anyway. That's my Luna. Outside, his brothers were preparing vehicles. The territorial summit awaited, and with it, the confrontation that would decide everything. Nyxa touched the mark on her neck, feeling the power thrumming beneath. She'd gone from exiled Omega to Luna in less than a week. Now she just had to survive long enough to claim it. The Howling Peak summit grounds were carved into a mountain, a massive neutral territory where the 4 ruling packs gathered for matters of law and war. As their convoy approached at dawn, Nyxa saw hundreds of wolves already assembled, Eclipse Ridge, Crimson Vale, Frosthaven, and Iron Crest, along with their delegations. Draven's already here, Jax observed grimly, pointing to a cluster of black banners. He brought his full force. So did we, Varkel countered, though their force consisted of 5 warriors versus Draven's 50. Nyxa's stomach churned as she spotted another set of banners, silver and blue. Frosthaven. Her former pack. Somewhere in that delegation were Garrett, her father, and everyone who'd thrown her away. Varkel's hand found hers, the bond pulsing reassurance. You're not theirs anymore. You're mine. Ours, she corrected. We're each other's. They'd dressed for war, Varkel in formal alpha leathers marked with Eclipse Ridge silver wolf, Nyxa in lunar ceremonial robes that Torian had somehow procured. The fabric was midnight blue with silver threading, and the circlet on her head marked her status unmistakably. As they exited the vehicles, conversation died. Hundreds of eyes turned to stare. That's her, someone whispered. The Omega who trapped an alpha heir. She's wearing lunar marks. Impossible. Draven said she was a spy. Varkel's arms slipped around her waist, presenting them as a united front. They walked toward the Great Hall, the Shadow Guard flanking them. That's when Nyxa saw him. Garrett stood with the Frosthaven delegation, and his expression when he spotted her was pure rage twisted with disbelief. Well. He detached from his group, approaching with predatory swagger despite his father's warning hand. The runaway Omega returns. And wearing lunar ceremonial dress. That's rich. Keep walking, Varkel growled. But Garrett blocked their path. You embarrassed me, Nyxa. Made me look weak in front of my pack. And now you're playing dress up with Eclipse Ridge's desperate heir. Nyxa felt Varkel's fury through the bond, felt him preparing to strike. She squeezed his hand. Wait. I didn't make you look weak, Garrett. You are weak. Her voice was steady, amplified by her lunar power. You needed to dominate others to feel strong. That's not power. That's pathetic. Garrett's face purpled. He reached for her. Varkel's hand caught his wrist in a grip that made bones creak. Touch my mate and lose the hand. His alpha aura exploded outward, crushing down on everyone within 20 feet. Wolves stumbled back, forced to bare necks in submission. Garrett dropped to his knees, unable to resist the pressure. She's not your mate, he gasped. She's an Omega who is Luna of Eclipse Ridge, bound by lunar right and blood bond. Varkel's voice was deadly quiet. You don't speak to her. You don't look at her. You don't breathe in her direction. Are we clear? Before Garrett could answer, a new voice interrupted. Varkel. Nyxa's father stepped forward, and seeing him made her chest tighten with complicated emotions. He looked older, guilt carved into the lines of his face. Nyxa, he said hoarsely. I didn't know you'd. I thought you'd. Died, she finished coldly. That was the point, wasn't it? Exile in Dead Man's Ridge was a death sentence. You knew that. I'm sorry. His voice cracked. I'm so sorry. I was wrong. I should have defended you. I should have. You should have been my father. Nyxa's eyes burned, but she refused to cry. But you chose pack politics over your daughter. That's a choice you have to live with. A young woman pushed through the crowd, Myra, her younger sister. Nyxa. She threw herself forward, sobbing. You're alive. I prayed every day that you were alive. The hug nearly undid Nyxa's composure. She held her sister tight, breathing in her familiar scent. I'm okay, Myra. I'm better than okay. Myra pulled back, taking in the lunar marks, the circlet, Varkel standing protectively close. You really mated to him? To an alpha heir? I really am. Good. Myra's expression turned fierce. Garrett's been awful. Father's been worse, drinking, guilt-ridden. The whole pack knows they were wrong about you. Myra, enough, their father said quietly. No. The girl rounded on him. She deserves to know that everyone sees what you did. That Marcus spread the word about what really happened. Half the pack would welcome her back if... I'm not coming back, Nyxa interrupted gently. I have a new pack now. A new life. Before more could be said, a resonant horn sounded. The summit was beginning. They filed into the great hall, a cavernous space with stone columns and ancient pack banners hanging from the ceiling. At the center was a raised platform where 4 thrones sat, one for each ruling pack's alpha. Alpha Prime Kyrian should have occupied Eclipse Ridge's throne. Instead, Draeven sat there, looking smug and regal. This is wrong, Torian muttered. He has no right. He has regent rights while father's incapacitated, Jax reminded him. Technically legal until challenged. The other 3 alphas were already seated. Alpha Moira of Crimson Vale, a fierce she-wolf in her 50s with calculating amber eyes. Seraphine stood behind her throne, glaring daggers at Nyxa. Alpha Garrett Sr. of Frosthaven, Garrett's father, looking uncomfortable. Alpha Marcus of Iron Crest, a massive wolf with iron-grey hair and a reputation for brutal efficiency. Moira stood, calling the summit to order. We gather for urgent matters. Varkel Stormborne has called this emergency session to address. I'm calling it, Varkel's voice rang out. He strode forward, Nyxa at his side. I'm challenging Draven's claim to Eclipse Ridge Regency. Shocked murmurs rippled through the hall. Draven smiled, showing teeth. The traitor heir appears, and with the Omega witch who compromised him. How convenient. I'm no traitor, Varkel countered. You poisoned me, hunted me, and staged a coup while I was unable to defend myself. Prove it, Draven challenged. Show evidence, or these are just desperate accusations. Kale stepped forward, holding a metal case. We have evidence. Vials of the Wolfsbane variant found in Draven's personal quarters. Financial records showing payments to, he glanced at Garrett Sr., certain alphas to facilitate the coup. And testimony from Draven's own guards who've turned against him. Fabricated, Draven dismissed. Created by a desperate heir trying to reclaim power he's not fit to hold. Then let's discuss fitness, Varkel shot back. I was poisoned and left to die. I survived because an Omega, this Omega, showed mercy. She had every reason to let me die. Her own pack had exiled her unjustly. But she saved me anyway. That's the character of my mate. That's the character of Eclipse Ridge's Luna. Nyxa felt hundreds of eyes on her. She lifted her chin, refusing to show fear. Moira studied them with sharp interest. You completed the Luna rite. I can see the bond marks. We did, Varkel confirmed. Last night, under the full moon, witnessed by my brothers and Shadow Guard. Convenient timing, Draven sneered. A political bonding to salvage a failing claim. Fated bond, Varkel corrected. Not political. The moon recognized her. The pack will too. I won't. Draven stood, his power radiating. This Omega is compromised. She's from Frosthaven, a pack known for corruption. For all we know, she's been working with them to destabilize Eclipse Ridge. That's insane, Nyxa said, finding her voice. Is it? Draven turned his attention to her, and his aura pressed down, trying to force submission. An exiled Omega just happens to find the poisoned heir? Just happens to keep him alive long enough to bond? You're either incredibly lucky or incredibly calculating. The pressure of his dominance was crushing. Nyxa felt her knees wanting to buckle, her Omega instinct screaming to submit. But she was Luna now. She had power too. Nyxa drew on the bond with Varkel, on the authority the Luna right had granted her, and pushed back. Her eyes flashed gold. I am Luna of Eclipse Ridge, chosen by the moon and marked by blood. You don't get to intimidate me. Her power met Draeven's, and to everyone's shock, including Nyxa's, it held. Draeven's eyes widened fractionally before rage took over. Witch. She's using dark magic. She's manifesting alpha lineage, Moira interrupted, standing. Her voice carried absolute authority. I can sense it. This Omega has dormant alpha blood. She turned to Nyxa. Who was your mother? Elara Thorn, Nyxa answered. She died 3 years ago. Moira's expression shifted to recognition, then shock. Elara Silvermoon. She was my cousin, from the alpha line of Crimson Veil. She went into hiding, took an Omega presentation to escape an arranged mating. She looked at the assembled alphas. This girl is alpha-born. Her bond with Varkel is legitimate. The hall erupted in whispers. Draeven's composure cracked. It doesn't matter what blood she carries. Varkel is compromised, unstable. Then prove it, Varkel challenged. Blood right. You and me. Traditional challenge. Winner takes Eclipse Ridge. The hall went silent. Moira's smile was sharp. Draeven, you've been claiming Varkel is unfit. Here's your chance to prove it. Unless you're afraid. Draeven's face twisted with hate. But refusing would show weakness. Accepted, he snarled. Tomorrow at dawn. And when I kill you, boy, I'll make sure your witch watches. Varkel's hand found Nyxa's, squeezing tight. Through the bond, she felt his determination, and his fear. They'd won the right to fight. Now they just had to survive it. Dawn broke cold and merciless over howling peaks. The ancient fighting circle, carved from stone worn smooth by centuries of blood, waited in the center of the summit grounds. Wolves from all 4 packs formed a ring around it, hundreds of witnesses to what would be the final judgment. Nyxa stood at the circle's edge, Varkel's brothers flanking her. Through the bond, she felt everything, Varkel's focus sharpening to a lethal point, his fear carefully contained, his love for her burning bright and desperate. He's going to win, Torian said, but his voice held doubt. Draeven entered from the opposite side, and Nyxa's breath caught. He was massive, broader than Varkel, scarred from decades of combat, moving with the confidence of a wolf who'd never lost a challenge. Varkel looked lean and young by comparison, still healing from injuries sustained during their escape. This is wrong, Nyxa whispered. He's not ready. He has to be. Jax's hand gripped her shoulder. This is the only way to end it. Elder Morwenna, ancient keeper of pack law, stood at the circle's center. Her voice carried despite her frail appearance. This is blood right combat. You fight until death, submission, or unconsciousness. There are no other rules. The victor claims Eclipse Ridge and all its territories. Do you both accept these terms? I accept, Varkel said clearly. I accept, Draeven echoed, his smile predatory. Then let the ancestors bear witness. Begin. They circled each other, and Nyxa could barely breathe. Through the bond, she felt Varkel assessing, calculating. Draeven was stronger, more experienced. Direct confrontation would be suicide. Draeven struck first, his attack brutal and direct. Varkel barely dodged, the blow whistling past his ear. He countered with precision strikes, targeting joints and vulnerable points, but Draeven shrugged them off. You fight like a pup, Draeven taunted, landing a crushing blow to Varkel's ribs. Varkel staggered, and Nyxa felt his pain like her own. She gripped Torian's arm to keep from interfering. They shifted simultaneously, 2 massive wolves colliding in a fury of fang and claw. Silver grey met dark brown in a violence that made the crowd gasp. Blood sprayed across ancient stone. Varkel was faster, but Draeven was relentless. He used dirty tactics, eye gouges, targeting old injuries, fighting with the efficiency of someone who'd killed for decades. Varkel's leg, the one Nyxa had splintered months ago, buckled under a targeted strike. He went down, and Draeven was on him instantly, jaws closing around his throat. No. Nyxa screamed. Through the bond, she felt Varkel's consciousness fading, felt him preparing to die. and something in her snapped. Power exploded from her, raw, untrained alpha authority that made every wolf in the vicinity drop to their knees. Her eyes blazed pure gold. "Varkel, get up." Her voice carried lunar command amplified by desperate love. The bond between them flared like lightning, and she felt her strength pouring into him. Varkel's eyes opened. With a roar that shook the mountain, he reversed position with explosive force, throwing Draeven off. The fight shifted. Varkel moved differently now, faster, stronger, drawing on the bond connecting him to Nyxa. Every time Draeven landed a blow, Varkel absorbed it and came back harder. They fought with savage intensity, two wolves battling for survival and sovereignty. Draeven began to slow, his age showing. Varkel pressed the advantage, relentless and precise. Finally, Varkel got inside Draeven's guard. His jaws closed around his uncle's throat, not killing, but dominant, absolute. Draeven struggled, then went still. His submission came as a hoarse whisper, "I yield." The crowd held its breath. Varkel could kill him. Should kill him, by most pack laws. Draeven had poisoned, hunted, and tried to steal everything. But Nyxa's voice cut through his fury, soft through the bond, "You're better than him. Prove it." Varkel released Draeven, stepping back. Blood dripped from dozens of wounds, but he stood tall. "Elder Morwenna, I claim victory." "Victory is confirmed." The ancient she-wolf's voice rang out. "Varkel Stormborne is declared rightful heir of Eclipse Ridge. Draeven Stormborne, you are hereby stripped of all rank and title, exiled to rogue lands, and forbidden from entering pack territories for the remainder of your life. Guards, escort him to the boundary." Draeven was dragged away, broken and defeated. As he passed Nyxa, his eyes promised vengeance. But he was powerless now, just another rogue. Varkel shifted back to human form, swaying. Nyxa ran to him, and he collapsed into her arms. "You did it," she breathed, supporting his weight. "We did it," he corrected. "I felt your power through the bond. You saved me again." Around them, Eclipse Ridge wolves began to cheer. The sound built into a roar that echoed across the mountain. "Varkel! Luna! Varkel! Luna!" The summit concluded with new territorial agreements. Alpha Moira approached Nyxa personally. "You have fire, girl. The territories need more Lunas like you, ones who fight." She extended her hand. "Crimson Veil offers alliance. And mentorship, if you want it." "I accept," Nyxa said, gripping her hand. "Thank you." Moira smiled. "Your mother would be proud. She ran from her alpha blood. You've claimed it." Seraphine appeared, her expression complicated. "I was wrong about you," she said stiffly. "You're not a schemer. You're just..." She trailed off. "Stubborn." Nyxa offered. "I was going to say brave." Seraphine's smile was genuine. "Take care of him. He's an idiot, but he's a good wolf." "I know." Frosthaven's reckoning came next. Garrett Sr. approached with his son, both looking diminished. On behalf of Frosthaven, the Alpha said formally, "I apologize for your unjust exile. We were wrong. If you wish, your place in the pack is gone," Nyxa interrupted. "I appreciate the apology, but I'm Eclipse Ridge now. That's my home." Garrett Jr. couldn't meet her eyes. "I'm sorry. For everything." "Good," Nyxa said simply. "Be better in the future." Her father approached last, Myra beside him. "Nyxa, I know I don't deserve forgiveness." "You don't," she agreed. "But I forgive you anyway. Not for you, for me. So I can move forward without that weight." Can I be part of your life again?" Nyxa considered. "Maybe someday. But right now, I need distance." "Myra," she turned to her sister, "if you want, there's a place for you in Eclipse Ridge." Myra's face lit up. "Really? Really? Come visit. Get to know your new pack." They embraced, and Nyxa felt a piece of her past finally settle into peace. 6 months later. Spring had transformed Eclipse Ridge. New construction replaced buildings damaged in Draeven's attack. The pack thrived under Varkel's leadership, fair, strong, and tempered by Nyxa's compassion. Alpha Prime Kyrian had fully recovered and formally stepped back, allowing Varkel to lead while providing wisdom. The transition had been seamless. Nyxa stood on the balcony of their private quarters, watching wolves train in the courtyard below. Changes she'd implemented, Omega protection laws, mandatory consent in all matings, education for all ranks, had revolutionized pack culture. She heard footsteps and smiled before turning. The bond always announced Varkel's presence like a warm pulse. There you are. He wrapped arms around her from behind, one hand settling on her rounded belly. How are my favorite wolves? Your daughter is active, Nyxa laughed as the baby kicked. I think she's going to be a warrior. With you as her mother? Absolutely. He kissed her temple. Ready to see it. See what? Come on. He led her through the compound to a vehicle. They drove in comfortable silence until familiar territory appeared, Dead Man's Ridge. Nyxa's breath caught as they approached her old cabin site. Except it wasn't ruins anymore. A beautiful new cabin stood there, larger, stronger, with stone foundation and wide windows. Smoke curled from a proper chimney. A garden plot waited for spring planting. You rebuilt it, she whispered. I promised I would. Our daughter should know where her parents' story began. Varkel helped her from the vehicle. It's yours. Ours. A place to escape politics when we need peace. Inside, the cabin was perfect, furnished with care, warm and welcoming. On the mantel sat a small carving of a wolf pup. Nyxa touched it, tears streaming. Ash. Where it all started. Varkel's arms encircled her. You saved a broken wolf, and he loved you for it. We saved each other, she corrected. They stood together watching sunset paint the pines gold and crimson, just as they had months ago when everything was uncertain and terrifying. Do you regret it? Varkel asked softly. Saving me that day. Nyxa laughed, turning in his arms. Every single day. His stricken expression made her smile. Because that pup ruined my peaceful exile, dragged me into wars, forced me to become Luna, and got me pregnant. She kissed him deeply. But he also showed me what love looks like. Gave me family, purpose, and a future I never imagined. So yes, I regret it. But I'd do it all again. Even the terrifying parts. Especially those. That's when you know it's real. Behind them, Myra's voice called from outside. She'd joined Eclipse Ridge permanently, training as a healer. Torian and Jax were visiting, their laughter carrying through open windows. Nyxa's hand rested on her belly, feeling their daughter move. She'd gone from exiled Omega to Luna, from rejected to revered, from alone to surrounded by pack. And it all started with mercy shown to a dying wolf in the snow. Thank you, Varkel whispered against her hair. For seeing me. For saving me. For loving me. Always, Nyxa promised. Us throwaways have to stick together, remember? His laugh was bright and free. Best decision I ever made, collapsing under your porch. Worst decision I ever made, carrying you inside. Liar. Completely. They kissed as the sun set, two wolves who'd been broken and discarded, now whole and home. The story of the rejected Omega and the fallen Alpha became legend, told around pack fires, whispered to pups as proof that compassion was strength, that love could reshape kingdoms, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you could do was save what everyone else had abandoned. If you enjoyed Nyxa and Varkel's journey from exile to sovereignty, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Where are you listening from? What part of their story resonated most with you? Your presence in this community matters. Until next time, may you always choose mercy. You never know what broken thing might change your entire world.